The Shibuya Incident arc has really been displaying the insane levels of power that exist beyond our main cast. Toji and his complete demolition of Dagon, and more recently, Mahoraga and its performance against Sukuna have both been rather impressive displays of power and overall combat ability, and seeing these two characters fight pretty closely together in episode count has sparked discussion amongst the community. Who would win between these two characters? Who is stronger, and how exactly would they be able to snatch victory from the other? Can Mahoraga adapt to Toji and all of the freedom that came with his heavenly restriction, or will Toji's superhuman capability simply be too much for Mahoraga to adapt to? And with me here today to cover this match, I have Six. Go and say what's up. Let them know why you're here, bro.
Yeah, I'm just here to spread the truth and reality. That's it.
All right, so in order to do that, let's jump into it with Mahoraga. And Six, you want to just start off with Mahoraga's general scaling, feats, abilities, etc., etc.
Yeah. So one of the things about Mahoraga, especially in his fight with Sukuna, which is like the main thing to draw from here since it just happened in the anime, is before Mahoraga was summoned, Megumi went out of his way to tell the storage miracle guy, I forget his name, he went out of his way to tell him everything about the 10 Shadows technique. And if you don't know, when you do that in JJK, it actually gives you a boost into how effective your curse technique is. So there's all these Shikigami lined up, and they're essentially greeting Mahoraga as his time coming out, and he's like the king of the divine general of all the Shikigami of the 10 Shadows curse technique. So this Mahoraga that fights Sukuna is likely stronger than he normally otherwise would have been. And this Sukuna, he does have a little bit of difficulty with Mahoraga, but that's not because Mahoraga is super powerful. It's obviously because of the adaptation. So Sukuna, he obviously launches Dismantle at it. Mahoraga stands there, gets cut a little bit, and then the next time he launches Dismantle, Mahoraga is able to actually deflect it. And Sukuna's like, you can actually see my curse techniques. Normally, his slashes are invisible. So Mahoraga ends up landing this one blow on Sukuna, which would make you think that Mahoraga is super duper strong because Sukuna gets sent flying like buildings away. But what happened is, instead of reinforcing his strike with positive energy, he did cursed energy the second time, and it essentially caught Sukuna off guard. So he doesn't land another hit on Sukuna after that. And then Sukuna's like, well, if I'm understanding the Shikigami right, it can adapt to any and all phenomenon, sort of like a late throw in rock, paper, scissors. And he's like, well, that's the case. If it was me back when I fought Megumi at the detention center, maybe it could have beaten me, Sukuna without his heart or whatever. So physically anyway, that's probably where Mahoraga's at when Megumi summons him with the disclosure amp. He's probably somewhere around no heart, 3 fingers Sukuna level. And that's even if you think that, because Sukuna does say maybe he could have beat him back then. So it is possible that Sukuna also could have pulled out a W there, but I'm just saying that's where Mahoraga should be at around physically.
Yeah, and one thing to note that's important about this caveat is for Mahoraga, a win does not necessitate that he actually scales to its opponent in strength and speed. It definitely helps, and it probably is implied that Mahoraga's general level of physicality would probably approach that of 3 Finger Sukuna, granted with the caveat that he has no heart. But as we know, Mahoraga is able to kind of just overcome large gaps of power through sheer adaptation, which, as we'll get into in a little bit, might be a little difficult against Toji. Some misconceptions that I think a lot of people have had in regards to Mahoraga, Six, you addressed, is that he scales to Sukuna, or that he's as fast as Sukuna. But as you mentioned, not only does he proceed to not land any hits after that initial strike, even when being caught off guard, Sukuna manages to actually block it, and from our point of view at least, sustain 0 damage, right? Even when literally not expecting Mahoraga to be as strong as he is, he sustains no damage to his arm, he sustains no damage to his body, except maybe a sleeve rip or something. Goes flying, is able to dodge a blitz attempt from Mahoraga, and just basically pretty obviously overwhelm it. I've seen a lot of people argue that Mahoraga to some extent is relative to Sukuna physically, but it's the techniques and Sukuna's knowledge and domain, etc., that allows him to sort of surpass that gap, when that couldn't really be further from the truth. The only reason that this fight lasts as long as it does is because because Mahoraga's adaptation is an explicitly ridiculously overpowered ability. It allows him to overcome physical gaps that shouldn't normally be surpassed. It's why it even survives the domain expansion in the first place, but can be overwhelmed so quickly by the fire arrow. It's not necessarily that the fire arrow itself is more powerful than Sukuna's domain amp slashes, but it's the fact that the fire arrow is a new phenomena that Mahoraga has not yet had the chance to adapt to. And one thing that this also implies is that Mahoraga probably isn't able to adapt to physical force or abilities. The reason I say this is because if Mahoraga was able to, it should have adapted and gotten physically more capable as its wheel spun. We know that it was able to see the slashes. We know that it was able to like actually perceive them and become more tough and resilient to them. However, we've never actually seen an example, even peering deep into the manga, of Mahoraga being able to fight against a character that is significantly faster and stronger and be able to overcome that physical gap through adaptation. So whether or not you think that he can in the future, or whether or not you think that's something that maybe is implied, in terms of direct statements or even just feats that we can quantify, Mahoraga will not just be getting stronger physically as the fight goes on. Rather, it'll just be gaining more and more hacks advantages and continuously adapt as we go on. Now, this is relevant because with Toji and all of his cursed tools, we have a little bit of an interesting matchup. For Toji, we actually have a very similar sort of like comparison to this heartless three-finger Sukuna, where Megumi says after getting blitzed that Toji is essentially as fast, if not faster, than the version of Sukuna that he fought immediately following the finger bearer encounter. So the reason I think this is important to mention, even if it's not necessarily the most concrete statement in the world, is because Megumi is denoting not just that Toji is like strong in the same way that Sukuna is, but specifically that he could be faster, whereas Mahoraga's statement with Sukuna, granted, is a little bit more concrete by the nature of Sukuna himself saying it. It doesn't necessarily denote physical stat comparisons in the way that Megumi and Toji's sort of relation to Sukuna does.
So there is also that Megumi's getting blitzed in both these situations, and I've heard some dishonest interpretations on this before where people are like, well, Megumi could have perceived Sukuna and Toji and just not been able to physically react, and I think that can't be further from the truth, especially in Toji's case, because Megumi's like, when did I get outside? So Toji carried him outside of the glass, outside of the little train station they were in, to the highway, and Megumi didn't even know that he moved. And if anything, that makes it a little bit worse for the Sukuna side of things, if you are saying that, because in this example, he does mention that he actually just couldn't see him. In the Sukuna example, it's a little bit more like you have to interpret it that way. I think it's very clear that Megumi couldn't see Sukuna. He was on top, way up with Orochi. He destroyed it. Then he got down to the bottom, threw him really fast. It didn't seem like Megumi could react in any way at all. So I do think that that's a little bit weird. It definitely throws a wrench in things as far as comparing the two of them, because not only does Sukuna not have a heart, like I said, Megumi is getting blitzed in both these scenarios. So it gets hard when scaling Toji, because then later on in that fight with Megumi like reaffirms it. He's like, yeah, this guy is as fast as Sukuna with 3 fingers. And it's like, are you being real? Like, do you really know that? Because Megumi does start reacting to him a little bit, but the way Megumi makes it seem, it's like aim dodging. But it would be a little bit hard to time or aim dodge something when you don't originally know what's going on, if you get what I mean. Like, you can't really aim dodge a bullet, because if you get shot with a bullet, it's too fast for you to even try to react on the second time. So it does imply that maybe Megumi can react to Toji somewhat. Now let me explain why. There's this mental state thing that Megumi can do. He did it the first time he opened his domain, where he's like, I just have to visualize myself winning. And when he does that, obviously first time he opens his domain, the second time he starts being able to react to Toji. He's like, well, this guy super strong, I gotta just visualize winning so I can get past him. And then he's able to react to Toji at least somewhat. His frog is able to grab him. He could move out the way during the rapid escape attack, and he almost timed his hit correctly when he landed the blow on him with the curse tool, but it only hit Toji's shirt. So there is, even with that, again, another complicated layer, Toji, when he's fighting, can supposedly get faster, at least according to Dogon. Dogon, he's running on the water, and Dogon is like, and he's speeding up, like he's destroying all the Shikigami, and then he's speeding up on top of that. So, like I said, it definitely throws a wrench in things, but for the most part, it seems like Toji around being Three Fingers level is like something that Gege was trying to push, and then maybe he could go even further than that.
Yeah. One thing I'll also say is that if for some reason you don't think that's a very concrete statement, or it's like there's so many interpretations or like, I guess, generosities you have to grant to Megumi and Toji in order for that to happen. I get that. I understand. I think narratively, like Six said, Gege is really trying to imply that Toji and that version of Sukuna are in the same dimension, but let's say you ignore that, you don't think it's really concrete. Another example of like Toji's high scaling going above the likes of Mahoraga would essentially be the Toji over Naobito, Naobito over every other sorcerer in terms of speed, and then like other sorcerers in the verse being implied or like confident enough to go up against the likes of an even stronger Mahoraga without like really any worry of death. Specifically, this dives into manga spoilers, but this actually refers to Yuta being confident enough to step into the Gojo versus Sukuna fight and specifically use him and Rika to hold off Agito and Mahoraga. The reason like he's doing so is because he thinks that obviously Gojo's being pressed by both Shikigami, but the important thing to note here is that Yuta seems to think that like he can take on, just based on what he's seen, and he's seen quite a bit from Mahoraga up to this point, that he can step into the battlefield, fight Mahoraga, and if not beat it, at least not die and hold it off and like make sure that Gojo can run the ones with Sukuna properly. The reason this is important is because Naobito's statement, depending on how you interpret it, just flat out says that he is the fastest with projection sorcery. So long as he's using it properly, he is the fastest, quote unquote, sorcerer, right? The reason like characters like Toji and Maki are exempt for this is because of their lack of cursed energy and cursed techniques by the series and by the characters within it. They aren't really considered sorcerers in the conventional sense. You'll have Gege refer to them as not sorcerers. You'll say like they can't be qualified for special grade tiers specifically because no one is interested in ranking them. Kenjaku makes a difference between them, specifically Maki and other sorcerers, etc., etc., etc. There are numerous examples within the story that denote Toji and Maki as maybe sorcerer-like, but something quite different, right? Toji's even, in fact, called the sorcerer killer specifically. So Naobito being faster than every other sorcerer, but Toji being even faster than that, just due to the fact that he was able to perform extremely well against Dagon, and as well as the fact that he was able to, like, at any point in time, immediately overwhelm and just completely destroy the Zenin clan, just pretty definitively says that Naobito is over the likes, or rather that Toji is over the likes of Naobito in the first place. If you interpret this narrator statement at face value, this would just mean that Toji, and by all accounts Maki as well, scale over Yuta, at least at speed. Yuta is confident in his ability to take on Mahoraga, which would mean he'd at least have to perform some level of relativity to him. Obviously, that Mahoraga is even stronger than the one we're talking about in this video, so it just means that Toji speed-wise should be on that level. So we've already, with just this, provided two separate ways or interpretations or argumentations that you can give to have Toji be as fast, if not potentially significantly faster than the version of Mahoraga that we're talking about today. I don't know if you wanted to jump into the other two, or if you think that's enough to sort of like substantiate our point for the sake of the video.
Why not? Why not give the last one? The last one is definitely going to be the one people disagree with the most. But you know, why not? So Maki is implied to be able to fight with Kenjaku to some extent. Kenjaku says to Hazunoki that he's looking out for not only sorcerers, because Maki's an awakened, physically gifted type, so he's got to look out for her, for Yuta, for Ui, because he can teleport and whatnot. So it definitely implies that Maki can somewhat give Kenjaku a run for his money, probably based on his prior experiences with Toji, since he is in Geto's body. He knows how strong someone like that can be. Even if you do think Kenjaku can beat Maki, Kenjaku, as far as I can tell, it's not like he really likes fighting. So having to fight someone strong isn't really for him per se. So that plus Kusakabe's statement that they should send Maki out to go fight Kenjaku, and his reasoning is not that to take it back. His reasoning is not, oh well, she can't handle it. It's we shouldn't split our forces before we fight Sukuna, which is fair. So like I said, it just definitely implies that Maki can somewhat fight Kenjaku, which would imply she's like around Yuta's level or Yuki's level, which could be considered consistent because Kenjaku does consider Yuta, Hikari, and Maki all members of the big three or the heavy hitters of the Jutsu High. And Yuki, according to Maki, is on Yuta's level. And then when you get to like Tengen also implies Yuki and Yuta are like of a similar level. He's like, well, look, 2 special grades is great. I'll take Yuki and Yuta or Choso. I'll take 2 special grades, but it's fine if I get a special grade and the death painting too. So, and in Yuki, she is also around Kenjaku's level. Kenjaku's like, can I even beat her alone? He was saying that if she opened her domain, the fight might not have ended so poorly. It's just like all these people seem to be around a similar level, and Kenjaku's like the top of the level. Like if you want to say, oh, all these guys are S-class sorcerers or S-class fighters, Kenjaku might be S+ or something like that. But they all seem to be around the similar level, because it doesn't have to be like Yuki is equal to Kenjaku. As long as they're around the same level, Maki has her precognition, she's got her soul split katana. She's got ways to deal with Kenjaku that may say like Yuki does not have, even if she couldn't in the end get the job done. And then that's all just to further imply that they could be around, or not around, but that they could beat Mahoraga. Because I guess this links back into the scaling chain that Broken Ronin brought up earlier, where Yuta's pretty confident that he can go out and fight with Mahoraga and Agito. So yeah, it would just imply that they're all around the same level.
Yeah, and one thing to note too is like, even if you think Yuki and by proxy Yuta are a decent bit slower than Kenjaku, maybe low and relative, that's completely fine, because we know that in terms of physical abilities, Maki and by proxy Toji can be significantly slower than a character, specifically like a blitz level difference in just either their precognitive abilities and like their capacity to move through the air in like inhuman ways. They can overcome that level of speed difference. So in all of the ways that we've established so far, right, at the bare minimum, Toji should be relative to Mahoraga physically, with the obvious enhanced like precognition that he has that would probably just allow him to completely avoid Mahoraga for the most part. And on the higher end, he's just definitively outright faster, which would be quite the big help. And as we have established earlier in the video, Mahoraga has never demonstrated the ability to get faster over the course of a fight through the use of adaptation. So Toji's speed isn't something that would, relative to Mahoraga's, Toji's speed isn't something that would ever change, and that would be like a pretty useful aspect of this fight that goes a little bit in Toji's favor. Now, another thing that kind of works for Toji is his arsenal, and specifically like his upbringing as, a Zenin. We know that Mahoraga specifically, and just inherited techniques in general, are like one of the consequences of having a very notable, powerful inherited technique is that everybody knows about it, right? Choso somehow knows about Mahoraga and its technique. Gojo obviously knows about it. Mei knows about it, right? Characters that, generally speaking, probably should not be super duper aware of like what this technique is, and the reason is kind of given in hidden inventory, and it's the fact that like inherited techniques, since they're passed down and like encountered through so many generations, they're kind of recorded, and you're able to get like an amalgamation of what the technique can do. Maybe the hyper specifics of the mechanics of Mahoraga's adaptation wouldn't be known to those outside of the clan, but even as a Zenin reject, Toji, with as informed as he is on other people's techniques, like as informed as he is on Gojo's, as generally cautious of a character he seems to be, and as like someone who could just massacre the clan at any given moment, I find it very unlikely that he isn't like super duper tapped into Mahoraga and all of its abilities, at the bare minimum, just knowing that it can adapt to any and all phenomena over time and like curse techniques. So a lot of the weapons that Toji would use in his arsenal, like for example Soul Split Katana, could definitely be held off and used exclusively for like a killing intent blow. Whereas like if Toji didn't have this information, he could definitely find himself running into a problem where he's using Soul Split Katana to, remove limbs or to just do minor damage, and over time Mahoraga adapts, its wheel spins, and now Soul Split Katana isn't doing anything. It's now not just cleaving through him, ignoring his durability in the way that he needs it to. Another very important thing that Toji has is Inverted Spear of Heaven, which would just like flat out cancel Mahoraga's ability to adapt. We have a pretty good precedent for this being the case in Sukuna and Gojo's fight, where domain amplification, which, in case you guys weren't aware, forcibly stops curse technique activation, Basically just guarantees that you can't continuously adapt like during the usage of it. So long as the curse technique of Maharaga's isn't in play, it will not continue to adapt. So say, for example, Inverted Spear of Heaven is lodged in Mahoraga, and then Toji hits him with Soul Split Katana or some other curse tool that he may have in the toolkit. Mahoraga will not be adapting to that because the curse technique that allows it to spin its wheel and like have that late throw in rock, paper, scissors will not be in play.
So another thing that Toji has in its favor, I guess this is like a sort of adaptation backfiring again, is Mahoraga can't adapt to speed or force. Like we know Mahoraga can adapt to specific types of force where he adapts to slashing attacks from Sukuna in general because Sukuna hit him with dismantle and cleave, but he can't adapt to just force in general. Like you can hit Mahoraga hard enough and actually get rid of it. So with that being the case, Playful Cloud is a pretty handy tool to use against it. And we do know that Toji has Playful Cloud. It said that it was in the inventory curse that Geto had during Volume 0. And obviously, he got that from Toji. So Toji should have Playful Cloud. And Playful Cloud in the fan book is stated to like draw out your maximum power. And aside from that, it has no curse technique. It's a curse tool. It has tons of curse energy, but it has no curse technique. So there's nothing for Mahoraga to adapt to other than, just getting beaten on by Toji. And if he does say put the Inverted Spear of Heaven in it before he comes out with his with Playful Cloud, then it really has no way to adapt at all. The Chain of 1,000 Miles probably isn't going to be that useful against Mahoraga because Toji's not a long range fighter and neither is Mahoraga, so they're probably just going to be up on each other close anyway. Maybe Toji could use it to like wrap Mahoraga up, but that doesn't seem like a strategy he would employ at all, so I doubt that would ever come into play. But yeah, I mean, as far as his arsenal goes, he's pretty much got everything he needs in order to put Mahoraga down. The only evidence that Mahoraga may even be able to heal from soul attacks from the Soul Split Katana is that we do know Sukuna can cut the soul, and when he cut Mahito's soul, obviously, and Mahoraga, after Sukuna cut him, he did actually, regenerate. But we don't know if this attack Sukuna launched at Mahoraga in that instance were specifically the soul cutting attacks, because we do know you can choose whether or not to target that, with your curse technique. So that's the only evidence, and it's shaky at best. So Toji should be able to, in a perfect world, or in reality, stab Mahoraga with the Inverted Spear of Heaven and then cut it up with the Soul Split Katana, because that's just a likely plan for him, given how he should know, like Rook and Runner went over, how Mahoraga's adaptation works and what it'll eventually come to if he doesn't put it down very fast.
Yeah. Mahoraga would really be left only to use like its blade and physical strength, which is fine and cool. Even if you think they're like more relative and Mahoraga can kind of get hits in, its AP is actually kind of featless in a weird way, right? It sends Sukuna flying, which is cool, it's impressive or whatever, but it doesn't really, it doesn't amount to much because Sukuna doesn't seem to take any damage. He doesn't need to heal himself. And then because Mahoraga proceeds to not land any hits on Sukuna after that, it's very hard to get a gauge on exactly how strong it is. You can maybe argue that its ability to deflect Sukuna slashes implies some level of great strength, although it's hard to parse whether or not that's an effective adaptation or if that's an effect of Mahoraga's base strength. Regardless, even if Toji is hit a couple of times, it's not like Toji is some glass cannon who can't handle or withstand the force of his own attacks. As we've seen pretty recently in the anime, he's a physical monster. Like Six said, with Playful Cloud, even if Toji were for some reason being a big dum-dum, right, and he were just fighting with Playful Cloud, I could very much see him pulling off something similar to how he did against Dagon, albeit with significantly more difficulty and probably a bit more drawn out in terms of how long it takes. But just using Playful Cloud and bum rushing him with physical strikes and overwhelming speed over and over and over until it disappears would probably be a viable yet kind of dumb and needlessly elongated strategy. Overall, I think if you have Toji being in character, you have Toji with his inventory, you have Toji knowing about Mahoraga, which all of these things are things that he should have or have knowledge of. I think it's pretty hard to argue that Mahoraga, especially the one that Megami summons in Shibuya, would be able to defeat Toji. Toji has like at least comparable speed. He has like the proper strength, durability, and then he just has like the better type advantage. Mahoraga definitely might be able to go up against characters and perform better than like Toji just on due to the nature of like adaptation. But when it comes to them specifically going at it and fighting against one another, I think Toji's like simply put a bad matchup for a character or Shikigami like Mahoraga.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, Mahoraga is definitely tough. There's nothing putting Mahoraga down. Like, you know, we said earlier that Mahoraga doesn't really have any scaling to any higher tier characters, like we even when he gets summoned later. And we know it's kind of a Herculean task to ask him to put up a good fight against Gojo. But the reality is that's just the next guy he was put up against, aside from Yorozu. But I mean, she wasn't all that.
Yeah,
So
Jesus.
Yeah,
That's about it for this. I mean, even in like, yeah, Toji kind of just takes it. Like I would say it's like a mid-diff fight. Like I don't think Toji's casually doing it necessarily, but I also don't think there's really any point in this fight where Toji's life is like significantly in danger. Like he has the potential to really lose. 10 times out of 10, I think I'd take Toji in this fight for the most part. So yeah. Thank you, Six, for joining me. Thank you for, helping me out with this video. If you guys did enjoy, you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to me and Six. By the time this video comes up, we're gonna have a few collabs over both on both of our channels. On his, he has a ranking of the Disaster Curse spirits. On mine, we'll have like a couple of Naruto cross versus videos going up for you guys to watch. So yeah, check us both out. We both make power scaling and just good content on JJK and other series in general. Appreciate you joining me, Six.
yes, sir.
Yeah. Hope you guys all enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next one.